Is the translation on?
L'interprétation fonctionne-t-elle?
Just going to wait for our guests to get their translation up and running.
I believe so.
Yeah. There we go. Welcome, colleagues, to the 101st meeting of the Subcommittee on International Human Rights. Today's session is a briefing on the human rights situation in Syria. We last heard on this topic earlier this month during the siege of eastern Ghouta. Before us today, we have three witnesses from the White Helmets. Deputy Chairman of the Board, Munir Mustafa, Board Member Nidal Ezzedine, and Medical Center Officer Mason Al-Misri. Before we begin with testimony, I want to note that this month marks 7 years of conflict in Syria. These have been 7 years of brutality, fear, and tragedy for millions of Syrians. In the midst of this, we have also seen what amounts to the very best of humanity, individuals who have selflessly put themselves in mortal danger to help others each and every day. These heroes are the White Helmets, and I cannot fully express to you our admiration for the life-saving work that you and your organization does on the front lines. I'd like to thank you for making yourselves available to the subcommittee, and I'd like to invite you now to begin by making your opening remarks, after which we shall go to questions from the members. Thank you very much.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, I will speak in Arabic. Okay. أول شيء مرحبا.
First of all, welcome. We're very, very happy for being here today, so we can deliver part of the message and the picture for what is happening in Syria since for 7 years. It's a great tragedy, and I think you have already read some information. White Helmets have been the first witness for 4 years so far for all violations of human rights in Syria. Today, 4 years after the work of White Helmets have started, الترجمة
de l'arabe au français.
It should be working. There might be a bit of a delay coming through.
You have it?
Through both
I'm listening to an Arabic. I'm just okay.
You're okay. Good. Okay, we are cleared to continue. Thank you very much, and sorry for that interruption. Please continue.
Thank you. Like I said earlier, today, 4 years after the conflict and after the work of the White Helmets, we have been the first witness to all the violations of human rights in Syria. And after 7 years of the tragedy in Syria, today we can start talking about an immense amount of violations of human rights in Syria. Honestly, I will talk about a very small portion of these violations. My friends also will give you more details. I come from Homs. I think you know this city. It's in the middle of Syria. Homs has many ethnic backgrounds. It's a diverse city. And also it started the public movement against the regime, especially after what happened in Daraa back in 2011. Therefore, the regime's revenge upon the people has been very intense against the people in this city. I was one of the people who have been forced to leave the city back in 2012. And I can't go back to my city. Today, we have death sentences, just like 1 million other people who have been expelled and forced to leave homes. We all remember the first exodus and then the second one of old homes, and then many other treaties that have not been implemented in Syria, like Eastern Ghouta, Western Ghouta, Aleppo. This is a huge crime. That's when you evacuate areas and residents and deprive them from life, confiscating all their memories, taking their families away from them. No justification can give them the right to do that.
So today, if we're talking about numbers, numbers are huge. Unfortunately, this was the first reason for the flow of refugees into places around the world. There were no other reasons. Today, I have lost my country, I've lost my memories, I've lost my land, and I'm without home in Ghouta. I need to find a new life. There are so many Syrians that have suffered in this way. The displacements, siege operations that has been there for 3 to 4 years, with small places that have been void of medical supplies, of food supplies, and people have been forced to leave, to exit those regions. 90% of those residents do not bear arms. They have not participated in any aggressions that would cause them to be at the forefront of being killed, of being displaced. But unfortunately, it was very obvious. There was an international silence about this displacement process. It's a long topic. And fortunately, we at the White Helmets keep all these files that support what we're saying. Those people that used to live in certain areas, who are they? Are they true residents of those places before the crisis? How were they displaced? What are their identities, men, women, children, their health situation? Do they have documents? We are able to provide such documentation to whomever is concerned. Thank you. My name is Munir Mustafa. I live in Idlib North. Obviously, I'll be talking about 2 crimes that used to take place in Syria against the Syrian people. The first one is using weapons by the regimes that are prohibited internationally, like the cluster ammunition that were used several times in several places inside Syria. Obviously, the chemical weapon as well, as we saw in Khan Sheikhun in southern Idlib, and the chlorine gas in several areas on Syrian territories in the north. and in the besieged Ghouta of Damascus. Obviously, these violations were repeated with the international community watching and hearing, sometimes even with the use of veto to protect the criminal who is sanctioning these weapons in Syria. The second crime that I'd like to talk about is shelling of the vital establishments and the service centers like the civil defense centers, hospitals that are spread all over the area that's outside of the Syrian control that will provide health care, ambulance, first aid. And as an example, there is a market that was targeted in a dairy area that led to 94 people killed in that market. They were all civilians. That was a huge massacre against the Syrian people. Another example of targeting the civil defense centers is Kafar Zeta Center that was targeted, another center that provides service for children and women. They were directly targeted and caused 7 members of the White Helmets to be killed, as well as other casualty, which disabled the center completely. Complete destruction of all the tools and instruments in the center. So just these two crimes using prohibited weapons and targeting vital and service areas that are meant to provide service to the local residents. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Maysoon Masri from Daraa, which was the birthplace of the revolution in Syria. Frankly speaking, there are so many tragedies and memories of horrific tragedies, but this morning I felt tremendously afraid. I wanted to turn on the telephone, and I was wondering whether I was going to hear about somebody that has been martyred. I personally lost 9 members of my family, siblings, nephews, nieces, about 50% in terms of cousins and other relatives, 50 individuals. The situation in Daraa, the destruction is more than 95% of the place. The infrastructure is not there. We are forced to drink from the wells. No electricity. We depend on solar energy and simple generators. We have a huge medical problem. If somebody is required to have a surgery, or axial tomography, there is no such facilities. So people could die because of lack of such medical facilities. We have 19 people in the year 2013. There were so many crimes that affect people, but that particular one touched on my own brother. He came from the farm. There was shooting in Daraa, and there was a ban on movement, a curfew. So when they came from the Mazra or farm, there were no communications. And as soon as they got into the residential areas, he was targeted by a sniper, and he was killed. The bullet went through his back and ended up in the body of my nephew. So this is a kind of personal tragedy. It was so difficult. My brother was very close to my mother, and his daughter was there. It was so difficult to provide any first aid for him or to take him to hospital because these facilities get also targeted. So the last picture that we have of him was just before he breathed his last, the screaming. We were unable to help him. We had nothing to do. We were able to do nothing. and the suffering continued with the targeting of our homes. We had to be displaced. We had to go to the farms. I lost another brother of mine and nephews and nieces. I am not married, but I have responsibility towards at least 10 children that are fatherless and motherless, and we have to protect them. There's no education. There are no secure places. Yesterday, I was talking to my brother, asking him about the situation. He said, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know where to go. So Ghouta is basically completely finished. People are simply watching, and we don't know about our destiny. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm here in body, but in spirit, I am with my family. I'll be back in a few days to Dera, and I don't know what awaits me there, whether I'm going to meet my family, whether we are going to be able to live, or whether we will just die at any moment. There's no future for us. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's my destiny, what's my family's destiny. So many crimes that are hard to describe. When you see a barrel bomb that's landing from a plane and you don't know what to do, what are the options? To run away, run for your life? I remember one time I was coming back from civil defense from my work, and a barrel was dropped. So I had the option to try to run away, but I decided to stay with my family and not to leave them and flee. So whether we live together or die together, we would stick together. So that's what we're talking about. There is no protection. When you see the rockets, when you see the barrels that are getting dropped, we have seen horrific things. We've seen bodies of parts of the bodies of children, and sometimes there is nothing left of the human bodies. Sometimes we had to walk only to realize that we're stepping on human remains and blood. No homes, no basic life necessities, no security. An ongoing situation. We tell our children, well, tomorrow the war will come to an end. We just tell them that. We tell them that the criminal will be tried. But we know inside us that there is no hope. Sometimes we don't even have food supplies. We lived through a siege in which we had to give up our own food in order to make sure children have food. In Dera, we were relatively better than other places that suffered through siege, but we realized that there is more punishment awaiting us. And frankly speaking, we do not want to leave our country. Before joining the civil defense, I used to be a journalist. In SANA, official news agency that speaks in the name of the Syrian government. But I could not continue with this kind of work with the Syrian media that forces us to twist the facts, to deny that there is a revolution, to say that, oh, this is just terrorism. But in fact, we saw educated people, we saw women, children, that were part of the demand for freedom. So basically, we wanted our country to deserve the name Syria, but I don't know, the wars that we are faced with, it's just beyond imagination. We don't deserve this kind of punishment. All we wanted is freedom. All we wanted is the essential elements of life. Yesterday, when I came to the parliament, it was just, I wept. And I'm like, how come we are deprived of such places, of such facilities? Parliament should represent people, should be there for people. But unfortunately, this is our situation. I remember I always it's wish to have better memories, but my memories are so painful. even if there is food, we don't have the appetite. We are not able to fall asleep. And when you look at the eyes of the children and you're unable to protect them, how do you feel about this? It's a horrific, unknown destiny. We're here today. We don't know if we're going to be alive tomorrow. So it's my desire. I'm talking to people, not governments. It's my desire that people would not forget that Syrian people that are being exposed to extermination with various weapons.
I am sure the killer will not be punished in the future, but we hope that there are certain parties that would hold the criminals responsible. We lost our trust in our justice system. Thank you.
Much to the three of you. I'm sure I speak for every member of this subcommittee when I say we are devastated and stunned by the testimony you have brought before us. And I want to immediately open up our first round of questions. MP Sweet is going to lead off. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Shukran. Thank you for your courage, your service. Salam alaikum. The peace of God to you. Mr. Azzedine, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that there's a death sentence against you, although you have a very clear code of conduct where you've made a vow not to be aligned with any political party. Your dedication is to saving those who are in trouble, and you will not be used to gather information or of a political, military, or economically sensitive nature. Why would there be a death sentence against you since you've made those vows?
Honestly, white helmets, like I said earlier, are the first witness against any violations in human rights in Syria. This has annoyed the regime, annoyed their allies. For this reason, the allies made us their first target. We are doomed to die in any operation held against the people. We do rescue and we look for people who survived, but we are dealt with as terrorists. We are perceived by the regime as terrorists. This question should be given actually and directed to those who are accusing us of being terrorists. Why are you considering those 4,000 people, along with the paramedics who work with them, are sentenced to death? What's the harm that we are causing to the community? We are giving life, we're supporting life. We are jeopardizing ourselves and our lives under the fire. We are not attacking anyone, we are giving life. We should have been given better consideration by the regime. If they really are keen to reach a peaceful solution, they shouldn't extinguish this candle of hope.
Friends, no white helmets have you lost?
In white helmets, we lost 243, 33 volunteers are female.
Dr. Ablatif, the ability to ask a question. How serious is the situation with mines and unexploded ordnances right now?
الاسم.
What's the name, please?
Unexploded.
Who is the question to, please?
Diffuse are they? How dangerous are they right now?
لمين السؤال؟
Who is the question to, please?
تم استخدام الأسلحة العنقودية داخل الأراضي السورية في عدة مناطق. طبعا الخوذ البيضاء عنده فرق.
In different locations, cluster bombs have been used, and we have marked the areas which were targeted by those weapons. We have full detailed report about this situation. And of course, I don't have enough time to talk about all those details in this session. However, we know exactly where are those cluster bombs and when are they potentially going to be detonated. Our job is basically to locate those bombs and remove as much as possible from the residential areas and getting rid of them. However, in farms and open areas, there are still so many bombs in these areas. We have maps, we have reports from the civil defense regarding the distribution of those bombs. Of course, this is going to take a very long time. We need scores of years maybe to get rid of all that. We need help. We need more teams to support in order to get rid of them totally.
Assalamu alaikum.
عليكم السلام.
أهلا وسهلا فيكم. And I would like to ask regarding Homs, Dar'a, and Idlib, North Idlib. Dar'a was the very first target, or were the beginning of the conflict, then Homs, and then North Idlib. The question: where did the people go from Homs and North Idlib and Dar'a? Where did they go? To which countries they flee?
I will answer this question. Due to the active hostilities in these areas like Homs, North Idlib, and Dar'a, some of the people who lived in those areas, they had to be displaced to neighboring countries. More than 4 million people are located inside Turkey, 1.5 million in Jordan, and also some of them went to Europe to ask for refugee protection and asylum. Some of them also came here in Canada as refugees. Those are some of the people who's been displaced and run away from death. But some people run from death to death. That's how I want to say. So they leave from a dangerous zone into another dangerous zone. So they run for their lives from an area of conflict, and then they go to another area in order to face their end there. Displacement operations that have been tackled earlier by one of my colleagues. People have been forced to leave their houses and then move to different areas within the same countries. However, there is no state protection for those people because they've been targeted consequently. A lot of people have been killed, they died, they have been injured. They are targeted with different types of weapons. Some people who have been displaced outside Syria as refugees, and some people have lost their house within Syria. So people are here and there. This is a tactic that is used by the regime. They force the people to be displaced in order to control the area. I will talk here about Eastern Aleppo, Homs, Ghouta, Daraya, Adamiya, Zabadani, Mataya, Eastern Ghouta. All those regions, if you look at the population density in those areas, the forced displacement have started 2 years ago in all those areas. The actual number is more than 5 million. No one of these have come back to their place. It's a crime. a crime by the best definition of the word.
Going to move to MP Khalid for the next question.
Thank you, Chair. And just before I begin, I would like to share some of my time with MP Fragaskaris. Thank you very much for coming in and for presenting your very compelling testimony. This is an issue that our subcommittee has been quite seized with for the past number of years, I think ever since we founded this subcommittee. Thank you for all of the work that you do, and thank you for coming in and presenting before us. I just have a few questions. You had mentioned a little bit about your interaction with other parties as they're involved with the conflict. Do you have ongoing communication with the parties, and if so, of what nature?
Regarding cooperation with other parties, of course, civil defense is fully independent. It doesn't follow any other political or military organization. However, there should be some kind of cooperation and coordination. You know, there is those military personnel and military regiments are distributed all over the country, different places of the country. So are you talking about the external or internal coordination?
أي أوكي تمام.
All right. There are different parties on the ground, so civil defense is very independent. And this is a very good facet because we can do our work without being involved with any other political party or other military organization. So we coordinate in order to reach some places. There are some facilities, except for the government of Bashar al-Assad and its allies. They don't allow civil defense personnel to reach those areas. So white helmets are not allowed to go there and do the work properly because of the death sentence against us. Because we have been considered as terrorists. However, those areas who are not controlled by the regime are accessible to us and very easy for us to get to. So some coordination is required, very simple type of coordination in order to provide our services very easily to the vast majority of the people.
143 white helmets have lost their lives because of the services that they're providing. How do you provide safety for the, I think, 3,700 some civilian volunteers that you have? How do you ensure the safety of your volunteers?
هلا بصراحة نحن
Honestly, the services that we offer are part of our mission from our faith, We're responsible for protecting human life, irrespective to their affiliation or culture, religion, ethnicity. A victim for us is a soul that has to be rescued. We are very keen on continuing and doing and keeping working in this regard. Regarding the persons that have lost their lives, I don't know how to explain to you the feeling of losing a friend, a colleague in white helmets. Today, we lost more than 10 volunteers in Ghouta. And before that, during the last 4 years, 233 people have been killed. It's the faith, it's our faith that we have to be there. We have to keep doing what we're doing in order to give hope to the people. Hopefully, one day, the friends of the Syrian people will feel our agony and open all those files that are in our possession, so that people can be paid back and the rights come back to those people.
Friends here in Canada. Thank you. I'll pass the floor on to MP Fragas-Cabas.
Thank you very much. Salam alaikum, and thank you so much for being here. It's a true honor to be in your presence. The unspeakable tragedy, the unspeakable violence and brutality that you've witnessed, I can only begin to imagine. You have mentioned, and I've noticed you've said it a few times, that the White Helmets are fully independent. And I go for that. There's no question about that. I've been following the work that you've been doing over the years very closely. I think one of the really important points about the White Helmets is that it's made up of so many folks from a wide variety of backgrounds. We're not just talking about doctors, nurses, paramedics here. We're talking about former teachers, engineers, tailors, firefighters. So it's a real volunteer effort, a genuine organic movement from the ground up, from the grassroots up, if you like. But while many in the world recognize that, there are those who continue to see you as not independent, as terrorists, as Al-Qaeda linked. If a quick Google search will turn that up. And I think much of that, not entirely, but much of that has to do with Russian propaganda. So I'm just going to quote something here. It comes from a book from a British academic, David Patrikakos, who wrote a book called War in 140 Characters, How Social Media is Reshaping Conflict in the 21st Century. And he says as follows: in the old days, they, by which he means Soviet Russia, would try and portray the Soviet Union as a model society. Now it's about confusing every issue with so many narratives that people can't recognize the truth when they see it. Now, how has Russia tried to carry this out? You obviously know this, but I want this on the record. We're talking about Twitter bots putting out propaganda and untruths about you. The promotion by the Russian state especially of bloggers, many of which have links to the 9/11 so-called truther movement that tries to continue to say that 9/11 was an inside job carried out by Bush Jr., Wolfowitz, and Rumsfeld and the like. And they're promoted on outlets such as Russia Today. So I think for the purposes of the record and for Canadians who are interested in this, can you go into this and how this propaganda effort has really created a perception of the organization that is completely false?
Yes, frankly speaking, this propaganda, if we look at it, we see a lot of contradiction in what they say, in the accusations that are filed against the White Helmets. They contradict each other. Sometimes we are AQ linked, sometimes we are the medical arm of Al-Qaeda, or we are collaborator with the British or the Americans. These are just contradictory accusations that prove that it's just misinformation against the White Helmets that work in Syria. Also, you wonder about the reason for these accusations against the White Helmets. The White Helmets, as we mentioned, were the first to reach the places where crimes are committed. They are the first eyewitnesses to such crimes. They take pictures, they convey the truth in a neutral way without any exaggerations, just showing the facts that happen in Syria. Of course, this is very disturbing to the criminal. When a criminal shows that you are showing the crime that's being committed, obviously you will be accused, you will have so many accusations filed against you because you're documenting the crime. So this is one of the main reasons why the Assad regime and its allies to target the White Helmets using accusations in an attempt to try to prove to the world. You mentioned it's really a little bit that the world sees. There are very few people that believe in such lies. I believe that there's so many friends around the world that know the truth, that sees the truth as it is, that receive our documentations, that we pay blood, we pay human life from the civil defense in order to provide help to the civilian population inside the Syrian territories.
Much.
Thank you.
We're now going to move to MP Quash, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much to all of you for coming to testify before us. We can only pay homage to the courage that you have demonstrated. You talked about human rights violations. There's...
Oh, French to Arabic translation, I think, is down.
Testing 1, 2, this is the English channel. Can you hear me? No? Yes? Okay. Thank you. I thank you for the courage you have demonstrated and for coming to testify before us. I'd like to know, in terms of human rights violations concerning hospitals and schools, for example, do you have any statistics on the frequency with which those institutions have been attacked and how many have been attacked?
Yes, the white helmets have reports and documents of all the operations that take place inside Syria. So targeting schools, hospitals, and markets, as well as civil defense centers, have full reports along with pictures. They are available with white helmets and with the civil defense. We are ready to submit upon request to any organizations, to any place that could participate in helping stop such crimes. There are cyclical reports that are done, even when it comes to a small process of rescuing somebody, moving somebody from one place to another, as well as the pictures that prove these reports. In terms of targeting schools and hospitals, and other vital places inside Syria, all are documented with pictures, with reports, with witnesses that are willing to witness on individual incidents, when such incidents happened, what happened, what are the number of casualties, the number of fatalities, the number of missing persons, what is the nature of the place that has been targeted. Is it a school with children? Is it a hospital with doctors and health providers, etc.? So all these have been documented with the civil defense, and the reports are available. From the beginning of the establishment of the civil defense until now, we're talking about more than 4 years. All these are available.
I had other questions concerning civilians, but particularly women and children. I see that you have women who are part of your organization. Do these women have specific responsibilities in the area of women and children who are victims? And to what degree, in terms of sexual violence carried out against women and children, would that be part of their domain?
When it comes to sexual violence, these things happen, but in small numbers. There's no society that's free of that, but the numbers are relatively small. As women in general, there are so many risks that we face, the direct shelling, the fact that there's no safe shelter for us. So even as a civil defense, when we go about our work on a daily basis, we are not sure we are going to return to our homes the same day. There's also the problem with arrests. Lots of women get detained until now. They are away. We don't know what happens to them. Some people leave the detention places and they get subjected to horrific torture. So basically, being arrested and detained is a very major concern. Yes, we have the shelling, but the detention is very serious. Also the economic situation in terms of women. There are so many women that have lost their main wage earner, the main wage earner, and now the women find themselves fully responsible for their own families. And sometimes a woman has to be displaced to other places in the hope of finding safety. There are big numbers that hope to find safety, to find economic supplies for the family. We have a big section of women and young girls that had to leave education because they could not pursue their education because the regime would detain women as a weapon in order to pressure their families, in order to surrender themselves, and in order to stop participating in the revolution. In terms of the ratio of population, up to a certain age, up to grade 9, women are not able to pursue their education any further. Health services for women. Some pregnant women lost their lives. They died for lack of medical supplies or for lack of medical facilities that would perform surgeries. We have so many children that lost their parents. Lots of children that are unable to get education, and they are unable to read or write. There are lots of children that have been physically injured, and they have become disabled, and there are no centers to rehabilitate such disabled children. Lots of women, lots of children have struggled psychologically, and they have severe psychological shocks and psychological problems because of what they have witnessed in terms of horrific scenes happening to their families. When they see their parents being killed, imagine a child looking at the head of their mother that was targeted by a rocket. When you think you're safe in the lower level of a building. So when the children were rescued, they were covered with the blood and body parts of their own families. So you weren't sure whether they were themselves injured or not. So such children struggle with fear and horror. As soon as they hear any noise, even if it's not loud, they scream. When I came to Canada, I just heard the bus at one point, and I thought I was in Dara, and I thought that was a plane, and I started looking for shelter. So this is the kind of psychological suffering that we have. We're unable to leave that climate of war that haunts us. So imagine women and children that have been subjected to horrific crimes. I have an addition to this when it comes to the sexual violence in Syria. Most of such cases against women in Syria is done inside the detention centers that are run by the Assad regime. There are so many witnesses for this. There are so many women that were detained and now they're free and they're willing to give testimony about what happened to them. I have a personal experience with this situation. In 2013, my wife was arrested from Damascus University, was detained. And remained for about 10 days after that until she recovered from the physical effects of the detention. 5 years later, she is isolated. She is unable to have friends. She does not talk to anybody. She is psychologically destroyed. I tried to take her to psychiatrists, but unfortunately her situation has been very difficult. And this is relatively after a short period of detention. Imagine women that were detained for a year or 2 or 3, and some are, their futures are not known, their destiny is not known. So obviously such people would have even more suffering than my own wife.
There are many instances of pregnancies inside detention centers because of sexual abuse and rape, systematic rape.
We're now going to move to MP Wisniewski, and then we'll finish off with MP Aboutif.
Thank you, Chair. Assalamu alaikum. Saying thank you doesn't fully encapsulate the gratitude that we need to express to you for the work that you're doing. You're doing God's work in a place where it seems the gates of hell have opened up. These are the most horrific human atrocities of the 21st century, and may God protect you in your work. But having said that, we have a responsibility as well, and we can't be bystanders. Through your testimony, bearing witness, through your eyes, you have shown us the hell of Syria. And perhaps a starting point for all of us is to be clear, so we aren't just bystanders, to call things clearly by what they are. And we need to be clear in stating that what the regime and their Russian enablers, the generals, diplomats, are involved in is systemic, sequential, knowingly, methodically planned, meticulously executed war crimes. The use of prohibited weapons, the use of prohibited tactics, the targeting of civilians, 9 UN documented cases of intentional mass killings. As diplomats at the UN discussed what was happening, as Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov talked of peace, incendiary bombs, white phosphorus bombs, were being loaded on planes that were being dropped in places like Raqqa. Bunker buster bombs were being loaded onto Russian planes to be dropped in Aleppo, targeting civilians, the children that you described, hiding in basements. And I have no questions to you. My question is to all of us. What are we going to do about it? Thank you.
Thank you. For North Idlib is more of a technical question. Idlib is on a Syrian shore, and it's a mix of ethnicities and faith-based groups. Have you noticed in Idlib there was displacement of certain groups, for example, where Sunnis been displaced with or replaced with Alawis in the area? What's the news about this specific region? I'd like to have a brief on that.
The people in northern Idlib, whether Alawis, Christians, Sunnis, or Shias, they're people, Syrians. They revolted not because of their sect, but the revolution was against the regime that deprives them from democracy. So large members of the community and the society, irrespective to their denomination, they have revolted against them. Maybe the Sunnis are the majority, but also there are many other minorities like Christians. They work even with us in the civil defense. So we have people from all walks of life and denominations. They work with white helmets. They help white helmets. We're brothers and sisters that work hand in hand. Nothing separates between us. The common target is that we all are sentenced to death by the regime because we are eyewitnesses to all the atrocities and crimes committed against the people and all the supporters of the regime as well. So I don't think there's a specific people that are targeted in the displacements. I know also like Druze in many other villages, like in northern Idlib, have been already targeted. Villages like Kifteen, I can't remember all of them. There are 7 or 8 villages. And those villages are inhabited by different sects. There are Christians also. They're still there. Nobody's targeting them. No problems. However, we never thought as white helmets to make statistics based on religious sects and denominations, because this is not part of our work. It doesn't go in the core of and nature of our business. The common denominator here is that we are considered enemies by the regime. So everybody who lives in the north considered agents, just because we are demanding democracy and reject the false democracy practiced by the regime.
Final short question to MP Fragascados.
Thank you very much. Canada has provided $12 million to the White Helmets, and there's been 600 other countries that have provided funding as well. Denmark, the Netherlands, the United States, Germany, New Zealand, and the UK. Could you go over how that funding is used?
I will talk first about the funds given by Canada, and after that I will talk about other donations coming from other friends to White Helmets. The Canadian money have been used in making places for women for White Helmets, and also increasing the numbers of women volunteering with White Helmets. The percentage was 0.5% after the end of 2018. Now we have the result is 10%, and this is thanks to Canadian money and Canadian donors to White Helmets. As you know, all communities have women form more than half of the community, and in Syria we have culture. And maybe it's a bit different from the Western culture. However, we wouldn't have been accessible to all walks of life and parts of community without those donations. So after the Canadian support was given to us, we've been able to employ around 400 women in different locations in all parts of Syria, and we have accessed communities there, accessed women, accessed children, provided our services more efficiently. We provided medical care, care for women, medical care to other women, first aid. This is for the Canadian donations that have been given to us during the last 2 years. Regarding the rest of the donations coming from other friends, this has been used for search and locations, also for buying equipments for search, and also buying machinery, also paying some rewards. We call them rewards, but because it's not a big money, we can't call it salary. This is a volunteer work, but some of this money have been paid as rewards or donations to other members and other volunteers who are sacrificing their lives. They all have families, they take care of their families, and they needed this money very badly. Some of this money also have been used in campaigns to enlighten people and teach people about the systematic systematic aggressions and about concerns regarding weaponry and bombs and the like. Also, we use this money to train our volunteers, like civil defense, for example. As you know, any mistake that a civil defense officer commits would make him lose his life. So it's a very dangerous work. That's why training is very essential and key in this regard. So we offer services. We offer training regarding services, firefighting. There are more details. I don't want to be very long in my explanations, but if you need anything more, I'll be happy to add.
Madame Laverdiere, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for your testimony here today. It's very impressive. And obviously, we have been following your work from a distance for a long time. And as my colleague said, we greatly appreciate and respect your courage. I know that you are gathering information on the front lines and that you are recording this information as well. And some of that information risks being very important in the future to ensure that justice be done, particularly in the cases of war crimes and crimes against humanity. What do you need in terms of resources in order to continue to do this work, to follow up these crimes against humanity and war crimes? Thank you. Merci. Thank you.
Of course, the first need here for white helmets in order to continue their work is for this support to continue, because without this support we cannot give our work to the people. We cannot go on with our fighting missions and civil defense. We help the communities to relocate, and we help them also to come back to their homes, resettle in their places. This is our first request from you, ladies and gentlemen. We need your support so we can go on with our work for many coming years. There are difficulties, of course. We are suffering from many difficulties. The transformation of money, for instance, the money that is offered to us from the Canadian government, it's very difficult for this money to reach us inside the Syrian territories. Maybe because of the sanctions. The sanctions are not against the white helmets, but these are general sanctions imposed. And because we work within the Syrian territories, so we've been included by these sanctions. Therefore, it's extremely difficult for this money to come to the White Helmets personnel and members and volunteers. The money is coming anyway, but it's extremely hard to reach us. So I'll give you a simple example. 3 months ago, so 3 months until now, we have never taken any of these awards, like the simple amount of money we offer the volunteers to help them sustain their living. So this simple reward that we pay for the volunteers, they have been deprived from it for the last 3 months. This money is used for food, buying necessities like gas and other humanitarian necessities. So we didn't receive any money for 3 months so far. because of the difficulty of transfer of money. This is a general perspective. I'm giving you a general picture now. I would love to help, but mainly the difficulties are logistic because of the sanctions. And the other thing that I need to reiterate here and stress on is to continue the support so we can go on with our work. Honestly, also, I want to say something frankly. The immense help that comes to friends of Syrian people is helping us start standing on a strong ground. We cannot go on with helping people and rescuing people. We need to draw a very bright picture about peace. We need to stop this destruction in Syria. We are all part of this. The people's support, the political support is important. We look for our old life. We want life to come back. I am a dentist. Munir, my friend, he's a firefighter. Sarah, or Maysoon, is a journalist. We miss our work. We miss our life. Help us to stand again. Please help us. Thank you.
This has been riveting and gut-wrenching all at once. And again, I know I speak for all members of this subcommittee. We had heard from you before almost a year and a half ago, and we keep hoping that things are going to get better, but we're very clearly understanding that things are not getting better. And your being here makes a difference. Your being here in person, telling your story to Canadians across this country and in Parliament Hill makes a difference. And we will amplify your voice, and we will make sure your message is heard, both within our own caucus up here, all of us, but also to Canadians in our community, because as my colleague said, this is the very worst situation facing the world right now, and the crimes, and again, the importance of your documenting and continuing to do that work so that one day justice will be served on those perpetrating these atrocities. And with that, I thank you, and I think I call to a close and adjourn this session.